That is roughly what it should look like when it's all said and done. I want them to be able to slide up and down like this. This is my forge, and I think it's time to build another one. The frame is 1/4-inch angle iron, very heavy. The bricks are cracking. We get fire coming out the bottom. The burner doesn't sit straight anymore. This can get way too close to the heat, and it's just much bigger than what I usually need. At the time of this recording, I have 5 days before Penzic, and I have to do everything else too. So, let's go. So this will be the second forge I make right at the very last minute. It's really time to upgrade this one, and the big reason is because I take this all with me to Penzic every year. It's a big camping event. I go, it's there with me, and I want a forge I can lift myself without hurting my back, you know? So, new forge time. It's going to be more efficient, should be able to forge weld with it. It's going to be great. It's too hot. This is the bottom. An arch, and this piece will like go over top. More water. Now the advantage I have this time is that I've actually planned it all out in advance and bought the materials I need, and I've got it all there, ready, waiting to go, and I have 5 days to do it. And a proper welder, and, well, anyway. The disadvantages are that it is 95 degrees, and I've decided to try out like 5 different new things. So this is going to be a bit of an experiment. I'm not going to know whether it's really going to work the way I want it to until I get it to Penzic. Now, in forming all this sheet metal, having a sheet metal brake to bend it, yes, would have made this a lot easier. So if you have one, maybe do it this way. If you don't, I'm going to go ahead and say either just cut all the pieces flat and weld them together, or like do what I figure out in a minute here and slit along the line so it bends easily and then weld over it. It would have been much faster that way. Now, by using a thinner metal, this is 14 gauge steel, which I looked up. According to some folks, it's basically the bare minimum you can get away with a forge. I'm hoping to really reduce the weight a lot. It's about half the volume of the old forge, and much more closed in. For once, I want a forge that actually has doors on it, you know, like a fully executed, finished thing, as opposed to, well, I made the box, and here's a work table, and throw some bricks on it. Cool, that closes off, it's fine. You knock the bricks over, they fall, they break, it's annoying. So, proper doors. I think I'm just gonna have to hit it a lot. We'll try that. Now, because I'm giving them the ability to move, well, that gives it more places to fail. That proper broke this time. Okay. As I'm working the sheet metal over the anvil here, which was really the best way to bend it, you've noticed that when it was off the far side of the anvil, and I'm hitting it that way, it would actually straighten it out more. So you really want it to be one side on the anvil, the other side in your hand, and hitting the hammer in between them, you know, so on the near side of the anvil. That really seemed to do the work to curve it, and then when it overcurves, you just put it off the other side and give it a few taps. No problem. So let's get this thing all tacked together now, and then completely skip over the majority of the welding, because it took a while. I think I'm down to about 3 days at this point. It's an arch! And now I'm going to give that a try. Slitting along the line, and then bending it. works like a charm. I could go get a hammer. I have several. You're wondering about that gaping hole in my shirt. That's what happens when you use a grinder for too long without anything protecting your shirt. Yeah, I think it'll do. So now I've got this bracket here that I've put together for holding on to the burner. This is going to be bolted directly to the body of the forge on bolts that are welded to the forge. And this will directly hold it much tighter than the sort of standard piece of pipe with 3 bolts through it. I've really been worried about how that's been set up in my last forge, so this is going to just assuage my anxiety about that. Quick little thing, 2 plates, a bolt through either side formed around the pipe, and a bracket to hold it to the angle that gets bolted onto the forge. Now it's got 3 bolts that attach it, and by adjusting some washers on those bolts and how tightly you crank down on the nuts, you can kind of adjust the angle just a little bit for a little bit of fine adjust. But most of the initial setup is just done by whacking it on the anvil till the angle looks right. So with the body pieces, top and bottom, put together now, I'm going to put some hinges on it, weld it on, and then on the other side, we're going to put some latches. It's going to end up looking like a pirate's treasure chest, actually, and I'm okay with that. Either that or the luggage from the Discworld. I'd have to put like 100 tiny feet on the bottom for it to be the luggage, but, well, and teeth. It would need teeth. Now I kind of want to do that. Ta-da! Well, maybe in a follow-up. Any case, so drill holes, bolt the bracket on, and then weld the bolts into the frame from the inside. Because they're going to be covered in insulation that's not going to want to come out. There's no way to get to the back end of them. They have to be welded in. Time to make the doors. Again, slitting this metal makes it bend so much easier. I'm going to start speeding up through some of this here, because a lot of it's the same. More cutting, more prepping, more welding. Super easy. After repeating the bending on the second piece, now I've got all the door parts ready to be welded up. All at once. And with the curves, you got to start on one end or in the middle, depending, and sort of pull it all around to keep it all in the right place. Because the bend's not going to be exactly right, but you get one point right, and then you bend the next one into place, and then you pull the next one into place. Very simple. Sometimes it's hard to hold on to, but you know, grab a clamp, grab a friend, you'll figure it out. There's a couple of these shots here where I'm leaning on whichever piece of metal it is with my full weight just to push the piece of metal into place so I get that tack in place. I've also left out almost all of the grinding of these because there are moving parts, because there are faces that meet. There can't be any welds in those spots, so I ground off all of those and any of the ugly ones so that it would all work well and look nice. The last step here, well, the last step in the construction of the shell is one of the most difficult pieces and the part that's most likely to fail. More on that later. I've got these tubes and these rods and these nuts and bolts. The nuts and bolts are going to go into this hole that I'm drilling into the tubes right now, and be welded. The nut will be welded in place, so it's like a set screw, just like that. And then the tubes will slide up and down on the rods, which will be affixed to the body of the forge, and the tubes affixed to the doors. That should work. Now I'm using this setup here, this spacer bar, to get it in exactly the same place, and to align it as close to square to the other one on the other side as I can possibly get. This was very fiddly. It took a very long time. Doing the same thing on the bottom, but slightly offset so that they won't interact, and then cutting some more pieces, welding it onto the body of the forge, bip, bap, bam. It even works. Okay, just about works. That, like that. You know, it kind of looks like a suitcase. Well, it's time for me to go home, but I'm not going to do it. I got one more day. I'm going to put stuff inside this instead of going home, eating, sleeping. Now I happen to have a whole bunch of the fire brick already, plus a whole bunch of broken pieces. So that's why I'm using it here. For the base, I probably would want some solid brick anyway, but, you know, just using what I had available. My brother had originally wanted to make a foundry. He never got around to it. He gave me the stuff, so I've got a whole bunch of brick and 3 2-foot by 1-foot sections of 1-inch thick ceramic wool insulation, which is what the arch is going to be made out of. Now, this is going to end up with 2.5 inches of insulation on the doors and the base, and 3 full inches of ceramic wool insulation on the arch. So it's much more insulated than most commercial forges that I've seen for sale. I'm hoping that will really help it get up to forge welding temperatures at a lower PSI. And because I bought a Zoeller Forge Z-burner, I know exactly what PSI I should, in theory, need to put it at to get to forge welding temperatures for the interior volume of this particular forge, which is something about 22 PSI. But because I've put significantly more insulation on there than what they assume 2 inches of insulation, I'm hoping I can get that down.
So that was one brick. Now to do all the rest. And cut.
It's important to remind everyone here, by the way, that the dust that comes off the ceramic bricks is very caustic. Caustic's the wrong word. Very bad for you. Don't breathe it. And even worse, the ceramic fiber blanket fibers are, they'll give you cancer. They're very bad. Do not breathe them. Wear a respirator. And I probably should have had long sleeves on as well. It didn't really irritate my skin all that much, but I was being very careful to keep it off of me. So, respirator, eye protection, hand protection. Don't breathe this stuff. It's bad for you, kids. So, 3 layers of this. You see I added some little metal teeth all the way around that sort of hook into the last layer of the fiber blanket to keep it all in place, to give it some more structure to hold on to. And once it's all said and done, I get the hole cut out. I'm going to be adding a sealing layer on top. In this case, I'm using Plistix 900F, also ordered from Zoeller Forge. This hole was a little bit oversized, I thought, but ends up working out just about perfect for the flare on the end of the nozzle. I'm thinking I might want to go back and permanently attach it in there so I can get the refractory coating completely surrounding the nozzle, but we'll see how much it ends up overheating or not. Now, the instructions I got for the Plistix was to mix it up to the consistency of a thin milkshake, but that... apparently you can do it to any consistency, it's fine, it's just water. And you cannot accelerate the curing on this. You have to let it air dry. And I ran out of recording space. But I got to Penzic, and I had the forge, and I had it set up. I got my campmates to draw on it with woad, just for fun, just whatever they felt like, for our ceremonial first firing of my brand new forge at Penzic.
You just happen to have a perfectly shaped ember bowl.
Now I'm recording this after the fact, so I know how it went. And it went really, really well. I'm very pleased with this forge. The doors had some issues. There was some changes as the heat expansion took over and bent some things a little bit, so the clearances were a bit too tight, but they still move. Some of the broken fire brick had some cracks in it that didn't last as well as I would have liked and needed to get more reinforcement, but overall it held together well. Now that cut there, that was about 2 minutes from cold to a really nice bright orange heat. It looks yellow here, but it was just, you know, scaling orange. Where you start seeing the black spots all over it. So thank you for watching, and look out for the follow-up. I'm going to do a bit of a post-mortem on the design and do a few touching up, do a few improvements and repairs to it. Catch you next time.